You are standing on a floating runway in the middle of the ocean. The wind is screaming past your ears at over 30 miles per hour. A 50,000-pound fighter jet is just a few feet away from you, engines roaring so loud it shakes your chest. You can't hear anything. No radio calls, no shouting, no second chances. And yet, somehow, this entire operation runs with absolute precision. Every movement, every action, every life or death decision, communicated only through hand signals. Now here's the part most people don't realize. This isn't chaos. What looks like madness is actually one of the most disciplined systems ever created. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You're about to step onto the flight deck of a US Navy aircraft carrier and understand exactly how this invisible language controls everything. Stick with this, because by the end, you won't just watch carrier operations, you'll read them like a pro. Before we dive in, think about this. If you were standing on that deck, surrounded by jets and danger at every step, would you trust hand signals with your life? Drop your answer in the comments. Now let's get into it. You might think the most dangerous place in the military is a battlefield, but officially, one of the most dangerous workplaces in the entire US military is the flight deck of an aircraft carrier. Not just dangerous at sea, not just dangerous in the Navy, one of the most dangerous, period. And when you look closer, it makes sense. You've got jet engines blasting at full power just feet away from human beings. You've got a ship that never stops moving, pitching and rolling under your feet. You've got cables snapping, aircraft launching at extreme speeds, and exhaust powerful enough to throw a person overboard. And then there's the noise. It's so loud that normal communication becomes useless. Radios can fail. Voices are completely drowned out. That's where everything changes. Because when sound fails, vision takes over. That's why the US Navy developed a complete visual communication system. Not a few gestures, a full language. Every signal has one meaning. No guessing, no improvising, no room for creativity. Because if someone misreads a signal, people can die. So the system had to be perfect. And before you even understand the signals, you need to understand the people. Because on that deck, color is everything. If you've ever watched carrier footage and thought it looked like a rainbow, you're not wrong. But it's not random. Every color represents a specific role, and once you learn them, the entire operation starts to make sense. Let's start with the one you need to remember most: yellow. If you see someone in yellow, that person is in control of the aircraft. They are the directors. Nothing moves without them, not an inch. When a jet is taxiing, when it's turning, when it's heading to the catapult, that pilot is following one person only: the yellow shirt. And that iconic moment you've probably seen, where someone kneels down, touches the deck, and points forward. That's a yellow shirt giving the final signal to launch. That gesture means one thing: you are clear to fly. Now think about that responsibility. One signal, one moment, and a 50,000-pound jet goes from zero to takeoff in seconds. Would you want that job? Let me know. Next up is green. Green shirts are the technical backbone. They operate the catapults and arresting gear. They're the ones making sure the machines actually work. Without them, nothing launches, nothing lands. Then you've got red. Red shirts handle weapons. They are in charge of arming missiles, bombs, everything that makes that aircraft combat ready. And here's something critical. When they signal hands up, the pilot must raise both hands off the controls. No exceptions. Because at that moment, weapons are being armed. One wrong movement could be catastrophic. Blue shirts are the movers. They drive tractors, move aircraft, position everything exactly where it needs to be. Brown shirts are assigned to specific aircraft. Think of them as the personal crew for each jet. They know that aircraft inside and out. White shirts are safety and medical. They're watching everything, making sure procedures are followed. And then there's purple. They're called the grapes. They handle fuel. And on a deck full of heat and explosives, Fuel is one of the most dangerous elements there is. Now here's the question. Out of all these roles, which one would you choose if you had to work on that deck? Take a second and think about it. Now let's walk through what actually happens before a jet launches. About 45 minutes before takeoff, the pilot begins a full inspection, walking around the aircraft, checking every surface, every component. At 30 minutes, engines start. At 15 minutes, things get serious. Jets begin taxiing toward the catapult. Now here's where the visual language begins. The pilot gives a thumbs up to the brown shirt. That means, I'm ready. But nothing happens yet, because no aircraft moves without a yellow shirt. When the yellow shirt arrives, everything changes. They signal for the removal of chocks and chains, those blocks holding the aircraft in place. Once those are gone, the jet is no longer secured. It's live. And from that moment forward, every movement is controlled entirely by hand signals. Now imagine taxiing a fighter jet on a runway that's moving under you, because that's exactly what's happening. This isn't a calm airport. This is a ship in the ocean. The yellow shirt uses clear, exaggerated movements. Arms forward means go. Angled arms mean turn. But here's a detail most people miss. The yellow shirt does not walk while signaling a moving aircraft. Why? Because if they move, especially at night, the pilot might think the aircraft is already rolling. That kind of confusion can lead to disaster. So the system eliminates ambiguity. Everything is deliberate. Everything is controlled. As the aircraft moves, control is passed from one yellow shirt to another, like a relay. And all of this is tracked inside the ship by the aircraft handler, who uses a deck model to monitor every movement. Now imagine this happening with multiple aircraft at once. 4 catapults, multiple jets moving, dozens of crew members, and yet it all works. Here's something that might surprise you. In daylight, a carrier can launch 2 aircraft and recover 1 every 30 to 40 seconds. At night, about 1 per minute. Think about that pace, and ask yourself, how does something this complex move this fast without braking? That's the power of the system. Now we get to the most intense part, the launch. The aircraft is hooked to the catapult. The holdback bar is attached. This device keeps the jet in place even at full power. And when the catapult fires, it snaps. That's by design. Now if the jet is armed, the red shirt steps in. Hands up. The pilot raises both hands. Weapons are armed. Safety pins removed. Then the final checkers inspect everything one last time. Every surface, every detail. Then comes the shooter, the catapult officer. This person is responsible for the entire launch. They calculate everything. Wind speed, aircraft weight, required power. Too little force, the jet won't fly. Too much, and you risk damaging the aircraft. Now the pilot pushes the engines to full power. The jet screams. Then comes the wipeout check. Control surfaces move. Left, right, up, down. Everything must respond perfectly. Then the pilot salutes. That salute means, I'm ready. Now it all comes down to one moment. The shooter looks across the deck. One final check. Then they kneel, touch the deck, and point forward. That's it. That signal triggers everything. The catapult fires, the holdback snaps, and in just 2 seconds, that jet goes from 0 to around 160 miles per hour. Gone. Think about how insane that is. 2 seconds. Now here's something that makes this system even more impressive. There's a built-in rule that keeps communication clear. Signals above the waist are for the pilot. Signals below the waist are for the deck crew. Simple, but incredibly effective. Because in an environment where confusion can kill, clarity is everything. Now let's talk about something modern. Newer carriers use electromagnetic catapults instead of steam. This system allows smoother launches and more control. It can even increase the number of launches per day. But here's the interesting part. The hand signals didn't change. The technology evolved. The language didn't. Because it already works perfectly. And that tells you something important. Sometimes the most advanced systems aren't the ones with the most technology. They're the ones that have been refined through decades of real-world experience. Now imagine doing all of this at night. Darkness, rough seas, limited visibility. Instead of hands, crews use illuminated wands. the margin for error gets even smaller. But the system holds. Because it's not just learned, it's drilled into muscle memory. These sailors don't think about the signals, they become the signals. Now let's step back for a second. What you're really seeing here isn't just coordination, it's trust. Every person on that deck trusts every other person to do their job perfectly. Because if one person fails, the entire system can collapse. So here's something to think about. Would you trust a system like this with your life? Or would you need something more? Drop your thoughts below. Now, as you watch carrier footage in the future, you won't see chaos anymore. You'll see structure. You'll see the yellow shirts guiding movement. You'll see the red shirts arming weapons. You'll see the pilot responding to signals. And you'll understand exactly what's happening. That's the difference knowledge makes. And that's what makes this one of the most incredible systems ever created. Because in one of the loudest, most dangerous environments on Earth, silence became the solution. Not through guesswork, but through discipline, through training, through precision, and through a language spoken without words. So next time you see that moment, the shooter kneeling, touching the deck, pointing forward, remember what it represents. Thousands of hours of training, decades of refinement, and a system that has to work perfectly every single time. Because out there, in the middle of the ocean, there are no second chances. If you found this fascinating, make sure you stick around, because the next video is going even deeper into how carrier landings work, and trust me, that's an entirely different level of intensity. Until then, keep watching closely, because the details are where the real story lives.